Hello, and welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you've been with me since January of 2023, you will know that Embracing the Fight is about normalizing the conversations surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. Now, why is this important? Well, think about it like this. When I started my story off by telling everyone that I had thyroid cancer, a lot of people, were like, oh, wow, you're telling people you have cancer. People are going to judge you and, your job's going to treat you differently. And then the folks that you know, think really love you, they're going to go away because they think you're going to die and all this crazy. And it's like, no, no. When you go through an illness or a disease, you need a support system. You need information. You need to do all you can to help build yourself. And that is part of the premise of embracing the fight. But the main premise is to get those conversations started to where people feel comfortable to speak about the things that they are suffering in silence with. Now, if you'd like to be a guest on Embracing the Fight, please send me an email to operations@diversitydesign.com. Or you can just reach out to me on Facebook at Embracing the Fight, Instagram at Embracing the Fight, X at Embracing the Fight, TikTok at Embracing the Fight. Everything that I have is at Embracing the Fight. So easy to find. And then all you see is a picture of me with the horizon of Curacao when I went there to actually vacation once. So now that I've gotten all the business out of the way, this is episode 91, the point of no return. So I'm sure you're probably wondering why, the point of no return. What exactly is she talking about? Well, I was having a discussion with my success leader and friend, Mr. Russell McCoy Jr., and he reminded me that in October, November, December, these 3 months are the 3 months where the suicide rate is the absolute highest. And I wanted to tell you about some stories. I'm not going to give, any names or anything like that, but I'm going to share some things that have happened or occurred in the past when it relates to suicide. So the first story, imagine being married and you have a child. Everything appears, to be going right in your world to everyone around you, but you've always struggled with some form of anxiety and depression ever since you were a child. And the only reason I know this is because I was reading some of the messages that people left when he actually passed away. And they were saying, oh, you used to say all the time that, life was too tough and you just wanted to die. You just wanted to end things. You wanted to do, all these different things to yourself. But at the end, you would laugh it off. So that lends to the thought that every joke has some truth in it. So follow me with the rest of the story. This young man was going to work every day, and he was basically taking his life and placing it on the line for others to live safely. And each day he would go, he would come back, he would see his wife, he would see his child. They would love on him, and he would tell them he loved them too. But for some reason, the day that he came home, and his wife, she was preparing dinner, and she asked him what he wanted to eat, and he just said spaghetti with a smile. She looked at him and she said, okay, I'll make spaghetti. And then he came and he hugged her and he held on to her just a little bit tighter. She realized that he was holding on to her tighter, but just didn't understand why, didn't know why. Felt different to her as well. And the daughter ran out and she was like, daddy, daddy, I got some stuff, I want you to see, I want you to look at. And he's like, oh, well, I'm about to go to the gun range and I'm going to see, some of my friends. I'm going to hang out with them for a little while. So the wife continues, to cook and everything. She's actually thinking, that something is different, but she's really not paying any attention, at this point. So she finishes cooking, and I think her daughter has to go to some type of activity. And he's supposed to pick her up, from the activity. A few hours pass, and she still, doesn't hear from him. And then he calls. And he's thanking her for being an amazing wife, telling her, all the things that he wants their daughter to do, to become, and to remember, about him. And she can tell, that he's upset. And something happened between work that day and him saying he was going to the gun range. So she decides to call and speak with someone that, is in authority at his place of employ. And they explained to her that, he said that he needed some time. He needed to go somewhere. He needed to blow some steam off. And this wasn't something that he would normally say. Now, I'm purposefully changing parts, of this story because I know that the person may listen to the story, and it may be triggering for them, and others around may know about it. But I don't want to be so specific that you know exactly who I'm talking about. Either way, this person, he drives back home, but he doesn't go to his house. He drives to the lake. She gets a call that no one has picked, their daughter up. So she goes, she picks her up, she's calling, he's not answering. So she calls his superiors like, please, you have to find him. So they basically sent out this APB, looking for him. They're pinging his phone. And they realize that he is still in his neighborhood at this lake. They pull up to find him sitting next to his car with a gunshot wound, and he is deceased. There's a letter there, but the contents of the letter will never, ever be as important as his life. People often wonder, what would drive a person to commit suicide? But the question is, what clues are they giving to the people that love them the most? That they're hoping potentially that someone supports them, someone talks them off of the ledge, not necessarily knowing exactly, what's going on. So then there's another story of a young man that was married. He had a son, and he's very close friends with many, many people. Everyone knows that he's very intelligent, beautiful smile, kind, giving, loving person. But still, when he was younger, he used to say really morbid things, and no one really understood why, because he had all the things that you would think that a person would want. He had both his parents, loving family. He had what he needed and a lot of the things that he wanted. So it's like, why is this person struggling, internally when it appears to be great in his world? Well, let's fast forward 25 or so years. Married, child, life is good, great job. And then you start calling people, telling them how much you love them, how much you appreciate them, and the role you want them to play in the life of your son. And then hours later, everyone's looking on Facebook in shock to see that you're no longer with us. And people are asking, was he sick? Did he have cancer? Did he have diabetes? Was he in a car accident? And when no one responded, we all knew at this point it had to be either murder or suicide. I learned later that it was suicide. He didn't leave a note. He only left a verbal trail of love that he wanted people to know that he had for them, and the love that he wanted them to continue to have for his family, the support that he needed for his friend. How did he get to that point? Not saying that, he gave these cues and clues or anything like that. But there's someone out there at this very moment that you know, that you love, that is struggling with the thought of suicide. So there's a guy that's on Instagram and he calls himself Wheelchair Kevin. And I would absolutely love to interview him because he attempted suicide and now he's confined to a wheelchair and he tells, his story. And I think you all should check it out because it gives you an idea of what it's like to be dying on the inside and think there's no other choice. And then when God gives you a second chance and you're living this second chance, you realize that if you had just waited another moment, lived another day, tried something different, your life will continue to go on. Your family will still have you here. And then there's these religious people out here that, talk about suicide. Oh, you're going to hell if you commit suicide. Honestly, in my heart, I don't know what God does when it comes to suicide. I know what the word says, but God is God. He has the right to change his mind, to change his heart. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I pray that you would not consider suicide. Suicide is like the last resort. That is the end of the line. You have no other choices because once it's done, it's done. And then you have to look back and think about what you left behind. Think of the two stories I just told you. You have a young lady that's growing up without his father, a young man growing up without his father, two widows. Do you think those women will ever truly want to be married and love again like that, just to be reminded that their first husband committed suicide because they felt like there was no other way out? And here these wives are giving unconditional love. They are kind. They are nurturers. They're doing all the things that they thought, they needed to do in the end zone. And their husband still committed suicide. And I know they're sitting there saying, I don't know what else I could have done. And then you got those little judgy people that's looking at them saying, oh, they probably were annoying, oh, they were nagging, oh, they were this or that. They had nothing to do with it. Nothing. Suicide comes from an internal struggle when you feel like there's no other choice. There's no other way out. This is the last resort. It's like, imagine being at the edge of the cliff. And behind you, there's the most venomous snakes. There are people standing there like a fire squad waiting to blow you to shreds. And all you have is a choice to jump off of this cliff because you don't want to feel the pain of all these things that could potentially happen to you when you know that as you're falling, that the speed at which you're falling and the distance at which you're falling to take you out before the impact of it. You're willing to take your chances when you feel like everything behind you is so much worse than what's in front of you. It shouldn't be that way. There are suicide hotlines. There's people that will sit down and talk to you for hours to talk you off the ledge. So if there's anyone out there that has ever thought about committing suicide or knows of someone who thought of committing suicide, please, please, please get them to a health professional. Don't try to do this on your own because there's also the flip side of it. You have those people that are out there that have friends that thought about committing suicide and they talked to them, they talked them off the ledge and it's all good. Then the next day they committed suicide. They just didn't do it at that moment because they didn't want to do it in front of the person that they love. But they had already decided in their heart that they were going to commit suicide. Now, this person that talked them off the ledge is now living with pain and guilt because they're like, what could I have done, more to help save this person when it's not entirely, up to them. Now, when you talk someone off the ledge, keep checking in with them. Try to get them some help because there's something in them that is hurting, something that is making them believe that there is no other option. There's no other way out. There's nothing. And I don't ever want anyone, especially anyone that's hearing the sound of my voice, to feel that there is no other choice. There's always a choice. People lose their jobs every day. There is something else. There are millions of jobs out there. Heck, if you want to become an entrepreneur, so you don't get fired again unless you fire yourself. But I've heard people say, oh, if I lose my job, that's it. That's the end of my life. Why? You weren't born with this job. Jobs come and go, but there's only one you. People walk out of your lives. I've seen people, like I saw this very disturbing video before they started, like taking certain things off of social media. There was a guy that was getting on the elevator with this young lady, and she was breaking up with him. He hugged her, held on to her, kissed her, let her get on the elevator. Soon as she got on the elevator, he put the gun to his mouth, pulled the trigger, and he was dead. Just because this person potentially leaves your life doesn't mean you have to take your own. Realize how many single people there are out there that's looking for an amazing person. So take the time, to heal. I know this is going to sound nuts, but a lot of people get together because of tragedy. Don't do that. Heal prior to, because then y'all will be doing a suicide pact. And that is definitely not what you want to do. Two people don't need to leave at the same time. Think about all the murder suicides that happen when one person finds out the other person is cheating, or they find out that a child that they have isn't theirs. Just because that's the case still does not warrant suicide, does not warrant murder. You can leave. You can go and you can start over. There is someone out there that is going to love you the way that you need to be loved. And they're not going to play with your emotions because they don't know what you have going on truly in your mind. Because a lot of folks don't understand that sometimes you can have a chemical imbalance that's causing you to want to commit suicide. Hallucinations, certain drugs you take will make you want to commit suicide. So any given day can provide a perfect storm for a person to want to commit suicide. Now, I say that, but I say this 100%. If something ever happens to me, I didn't do it. I love me way too much. And I hope you do too. I hope that you love yourself so much that if something ever happens to you, that no one ever thinks it's suicide because you were like, I don't know, a narcissist for yourself. Not saying that you are narcissistic in any way to other people, but I'm saying you love yourself so much that there's nothing else that can come between you and you. I'm like that. I love me some me. So suicide is not an option for me. I will try so many other things, so many iterations of things if something's taken away from me. Think about it like this, everyone. You all know that I've had cancer twice. You all know that I've had knee surgery, that I have had fibroids removed, that I do not have any children and I love children. You know that I was in a marriage that was not conducive for my life. You will know that I am suffering from the remnants of that. You will know that I have worked at places and that I have lost my job. You know that All those things have happened in my life. But I have moved on. I am working. I am trying to meet someone. I am focused on what it's going to take to bring me joy, to keep me happy. I'm not focused on all the stuff that I lost. Because focusing on the stuff that you've lost will have you depressed. And depression might take you down, that road to suicide. Don't do that. Think about it like this. There are people out there that have lost their jobs. Like I watch Anthony O'Neill, The Table with Anthony O'Neill. Watch that podcast very often. And he always has these people that come on there. And one of them specifically was like the cupcake lady. And she was talking about, how she was married and all this stuff was going on in her marriage. And she lost her job. They lost their income. All these terrible things were happening. And all of a sudden she was like, I just want to bake. She had no clue on really how, to start baking. She was baking with bought cakes and stuff and adding in ingredients to make the things better. And now she is a multimillionaire selling cupcakes, doing something that she loves. No longer is she punching a clock, going to a place that she hates. No longer was she married to someone who did not love and respect her. She didn't focus on those things. She focused on the babies in her house and her happiness. And now she's living it. Imagine if when that income had stopped and that husband that she had walked away, that she went inside and committed suicide. Then you got all these children without a mother. And all this greatness and all this stuff that she has done in her life since the point of tragedy would never have occurred. So think about it. You were designed for something great. You were designed for something amazing. You have a purpose, and only you can do it. There's no reason that's great enough for you to turn the light out on yourself. Let your light shine. Sure, cry, scream, yell, run, jump up and down. Do whatever it takes to get that negative energy out of you. Talk to a mental health counselor, because that's something that we don't do. Because people think, well, you know what, they're a person just like I'm a person. They might be, but they're not actively going through what you're going through, but they are a trained professional that understands what you're going through. And if it gets to a point where you feel like they can't help you, go to a psychiatrist. And you know what? Something else that I didn't realize. You know how I'm always talking about, your gut microbiome? That impacts your mental health as well. Because all disease, all illnesses start in your gut. So if you eating all this stuff, it's got all these toxins and all these things in it, and you have no way, of cleaning it out, figure that out. Because that's a lot of what causes us to be depressed, down, in pain. A lot of people, the group of people that I didn't talk about that people find are committing suicide more and more are those folks who are fighting with illness and pain. Now, I really don't know what it's like to wake up all day and be in pain, all night in pain, not being able to do anything for yourself. But I still believe that God is a healer and your situation can be turned around in an instant. Think about it like this. 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, let's say 30 years ago, AIDS was a death sentence. Now with medicine, technology, AIDS can become non-detectable and non-transmittable. You think those people back in the 80s and 90s, if they had known that, they would have committed suicide? I think they would have fought and fought and fought and fought until they thought something could come along and help them. But you'll never know if you commit suicide. All these technological advances, give it time. Fight through it. Because, like I said, all the stuff that I named, a lot of people don't realize that those things that I dealt with have taken thousands of people out. I'm not saying they weren't mentally strong or anything like that. They just didn't see any other way. You have to help them see another way. Don't turn a blind eye. Sometimes when people call you to complain or cry about things, just listen. Because you don't know where they are. Are they on that ledge and that stuff behind them is threatening to kill them piece by piece and they just want to jump? Or can you come up behind them and be a shield between them and the thing that is behind them that is worrying them so much they want to take their life? Don't do that. Don't allow your friends to suffer in silence. Make it a safe place for them to come and tell you that they're considering suicide. Because I know that's a hard thing to really say to someone, like, hey, you know what? I don't think I can take life anymore. Or hey, you know what? Such a struggle. I feel like I'm about to lose everything. And if I lose everything, I got to leave here. Things should never have you wanting to take away the greatest gift that you have of life. It just shouldn't happen that way. So what I'm asking you to do today is just do a friend check, family check. Call and see how they're doing. Especially, some of your elderly family members, because some of them, especially those ones that's like in their 80s and 90s, a lot of their friends are gone. And the only human interaction that they have might just be with the TV. Like, when's the last time you visited an elderly person just to say hello? Just to hear them tell you the same stories they might have told you 20 years ago. Who cares? They're still here. Because suicide is rising among the elderly. You have to let them know that you love them, that they are valued. You have to do that. Like, you can assume that they know that, but if you don't ask, how do you know that they know that? So start speaking life into the elderly. Because think about it, when you were a little kid, they might have been the one that brought you the little bag of candy, or they might have watched you when your mom or your dad, had to work and had no other option. But they were the go-to. And now they're sitting over here either at home by themselves all the time, just watching the sunrise and the sunset with nothing in between, no love, no calls, no nothing. And all they can do is feed off of their memory and start missing the people that were important to them. And then what do you think that does? That starts them to say, you know what? Maybe I'm better off not here. Don't allow that to happen. All that rich history that they have. Sit down and talk to them. Ask them, to fill out a family tree. See what it is they remember. Take them to lunch. Take them outside of their home. Let them see, how much the world has changed and how beautiful, it is to be loved and to live. You realize that love can be the greatest cure for suicide. Imagine if someone knew, truly, truly knew to the depths of their soul how much that they are loved. They won't feel like they're a burden. They won't feel like failures. They won't feel like whatever it is that's causing them to want to take their life. So please, like I said, do this favor for me. Take a time out to do a check, like a love check, personal check, whatever you want to call it. Check on your family, check on your friends, check on your folks, check on your people, check on them. Don't wait. Do it now. And don't just send a text. I know. Everybody knows that I struggle with peopling. And people are like, oh, you're so good at it. Mm-mm. I talk to my parents all the time, my sister, my brother, a couple of my friends, but I too am going to take this challenge. So if I'm calling you, please answer. I just want to check on you. I just want to see how you're doing. So please be with me. Take this challenge. October, November, December. Call someone, especially around the holidays. You know they're alone. Call them, talk to them, let them know that they are important, that they mean something to you. Or come January, they might not be here because they felt like they didn't matter. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to watch this episode of Embracing the Fight. And as always, I want you to have an absolute amazing day.